What's the most powerful name in news? You might say CNN or Fox News or the AP or the BBC, but I would say it's Facebook. Not because Facebook does any actual reporting, it doesn't, but because it is the single biggest social network on the planet, growing bigger every day. It's where hundreds of millions of people see lots of links to news. In fact, Facebook is the single biggest source of traffic for many news websites. Sites either thrive or wither away because of Facebook, and that's why this next story is so concerning. Facebook is on the defensive this week after an explosive report by the tech blog Gizmodo. The blog cited anonymous former Facebook workers who said the trending topics box, that's that box in the upper right-hand corner of the screen on Facebook, that box was sometimes manipulated to suppress conservative news stories and inject other subjects, like, for example, Black Lives Matter protest news, into the box. Now, other former workers denied these claims. It's important to say there's no proof, and these were only anonymous claims. But that single spark on Monday started a huge fire. By the end of the week, CEO Mark Zuckerberg had to weigh in. He wrote a post about this, saying, "We have found no evidence this report is true, and if we find anything against our principles, you have my commitment that we will take additional steps to address it." Now, new this morning, I'm told by a spokesman at Facebook, we were just speaking about this, that Glenn Beck has been invited to a meeting with Zuckerberg, others as well, prominent conservative thought leaders who will be meeting with the CEO. But let's go back to what Zuckerberg said there. He said something about principles. What are Facebook's news principles? The company has a huge amount of publishing power. So how can we trust it to wield that power responsibly? My next two guests have some answers to that. Kelly McBride is a media ethicist at the Poynter Institute, and Molly Hemingway is a senior editor at the conservative web magazine, The Federalist. Thank you both for being here. Molly, let me start with you. We're in the middle of an extraordinary election season, and here's this report that Facebook might be burying news favorable to conservatives. A, do you believe it? Have you seen evidence of this ever? And B, what are the ramifications for a website like yours?
I think the reason why this story resonated so much is that it confirmed the suspicions that so many conservatives and conservative media outlets had for going back quite some time about suppression of conservative news stories and sites, and also elevation of other topics. We've certainly experienced this at The Federalist, not just in terms of the trending topics issue, but other suppression where stories that are completely academic are deemed unsafe. We had a story on trigger warnings and microaggressions that couldn't be posted because it was deemed unsafe, which was ridiculous. Or perhaps the worst example was when the Planned Parenthood story broke and went viral almost within minutes. It took a very long time for Facebook to acknowledge that this was a trending topic. And then when they didn't link to the conservative sites that were actually breaking the news and doing the investigations. They linked to a few Planned Parenthood-sponsored items instead. And that is, that really affects the way public opinion can be shaped and how other media figures respond. And so this is not a healthy thing, particularly since they present this trending topic thing as if it's just an algorithm and as if they are neutral.
Yeah, the eye-opening part of this week was that trending topics is reviewed by editors. And Kelly, let me ask you about this. There's good reasons to have editors, right? Facebook editors can take away spam and scams and hoaxes and help not get people misled. But if they're also removing or downplaying stories, links to sites like The Federalist, that can be a real problem, and it can go right to the heart of Facebook's credibility. But these words like credibility and editors, they're not words that Facebook is used to, right? Because Facebook says it's just a platform.
Right. Facebook sees itself as a technology company, as a social media platform, when in fact they are doing the work of journalism in distributing journalism to the masses. And for Facebook, this is, I think, a turning point, because they're asking themselves questions as a company about what their responsibilities are. Every time you ask Facebook in the past about their obligations to democracy and to the marketplace of ideas, they've always had the right answers. But proactively, they haven't had any of the policies that companies like news companies have had in place. Policies of transparency, policies of accountability to the public. And now I think they're at a critical point where they're asking themselves some questions about whether they need those policies. The statement that Facebook put out this week was the most transparent I've ever seen Facebook about any of their policies. And it was a really good first step.
Yeah, I think it's still pretty much still very opaque. You're right. They've been a little more transparent, but there's still so much we don't know. And I think that's concerning because Facebook is so darn big. We should mention here the company also has big relationships with lots of news companies, right? They have a new product called Facebook Live, live video streaming. We've tried to hear on reliable sources. Recently, Facebook started paying CNN and lots of other news companies in order to create lots of Facebook Live content. Now, they're not saying what to create, but they're encouraging quantity. They're encouraging you to do it often. And there's all these kind of relationship with news companies. So it's such a complicated sort of situation here. Now, Molly, I think what Facebook would say, to your point about the stories about Planned Parenthood not showing up right away, is that that's why they need editors, and need editors to make sure it shows up, because otherwise the algorithm wasn't working fast enough. But what do you want to see Facebook do in the days and weeks to come?
But that's the point. Our data showed that story went viral immediately. I cannot even convey how many people were on our site looking at that and how much it was being discussed on social media. That it didn't show up on trending topics is bizarre to the highest degree. And there are so many problems that were revealed even as Facebook was denying these allegations. They said that they have a list of sources that they consider decent and worthy of. If 3 of those sources are talking about something, then they'll put it on trending topics. Well, some of those sources are state-controlled. Some of those are communist news organizations out of China. There are all sorts of ways that you can manipulate.
China, for example? Right.
Yes, and there are all sorts of ways that you can manipulate that using state-controlled media. So we need to see much more transparency. One of the things that Zuckerberg said, Zuckerberg, who's been made very wealthy by Facebook, he made $4.4 million a day for every day he's been alive. He says that they keep a list of things that have been blacklisted from trending topics. I'd like to see that list. I'd like to see much more. Even the statement saying, oh, well, we have policies and procedures. Well, the former Facebook employees themselves said that they were directed to block certain sites and to block certain stories. So it doesn't really matter if the policies are there, if the culture is such that it suppresses conservative news and news figures.
Real quickly, Kelly, I have to run, but you suggested Facebook should have a public editor. You used to be the ombudsman for ESPN, so if they call you, will you consider being their public editor?
Oh, I don't think they're going to call me, but I do think it's a fabulous idea.
Right. I do too. I think it's a great idea, and we'll keep following this meeting on Wednesday with Zuckerberg and conservative media figures.